Uh-oh, more bad news for Donald Trump, and not just for Trump, but for the Republican Party in general. We've got some new polling data from NBC, and it is not looking good for the orange buffoon or for his fascist personality cult, also known as the Republican Party. Here's the headline of this NBC article. Frustration with Trump gives Democrats an opening a year before the midterms. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's a pretty lengthy piece, but I will link to it in the video description below, so please check that out. But I do want to read some select passages of this. So let me begin. Democrats have an early lead in next year's battle for control of Congress amid an ongoing government shutdown, as more voters say President Donald Trump has not lived up to their expectations on several major issues that propelled him back to the White House in 2024. Around 2/3 of registered voters say the Trump administration has fallen short on the economy and the cost of living, and a majority say he's fallen short on changing business as usual in Washington. Meanwhile, the issue of protecting democracy and constitutional rights are top issues to voters alongside costs, and a majority of voters believe he's done more to undermine the Constitution than to defend it. How anyone could think anything different is beyond me at this point, but whatever. The president's overall approval rating in the survey sits at 43%, a 4-point decrease since March, while 55% disapprove of his job performance. Now, when you hear that 43%, you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. 43% approve of this piece of shit? That's way too high. And it is. But what's important here is that it's 4 points lower than it was in March in this poll. Now, I've seen a lot of other polls that have him, at lower approval ratings with many polls showing him in the upper 30s. So I don't know exactly where it sits at, but what's important is the overall trend. And the overall trend has been down, 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 including in this NBC poll. Now, here is the money quote from this article. This is the most important takeaway, in my opinion. 1 year before the 2026 midterm elections, Democrats lead Republicans in the fight for Congress by 8 points, 50% to 42%, the largest lead for either party on the congressional ballot in the NBC News poll since the 2018 midterms. Democrats had a negligible 1-point edge, 48 to 47, back in March. So again, another important data point that is all going in the wrong direction for Trump and his cult. And that is huge. An 8-point gap a year before the election on the generic congressional ballot, that's big. And it is the biggest gap since the 2018 midterms, which was a huge landslide wave election for Democrats. That was Trump's first midterm election, and it went horribly for him. And if we repeated something like that next year, then Republicans will definitely lose control of the House by quite a large margin, and the Senate might even flip. So definitely shouldn't be counting our chickens before they hatch or anything like this, but this is definitely moving in the right direction. Let me read a little bit more. What we know is that this is an electorate that remains deeply unhappy with the status quo. And see, that's the thing. Donald Trump got elected last year in large part because people perceived things as going in the wrong direction. And when that happens, they vote out the party in power and they vote in the new guy. Well, Donald Trump wasn't a new guy, but he was the other guy, right? He was the party out of power. And he had benefited tremendously from being out of power for 4 years. People forgot what a fucking disaster he was. And for 4 years, he and his entire, pro-Trump propaganda machine lied about his time in office, lied about what was going on in the country day in and day out for 4 years with virtually no pushback. There were no counterpoints almost ever offered. The Biden administration's political theory was, look, we're just going to do a good job. We're not going to respond to Donald Trump. We're not going to respond to every lie. The American people are smart. The American people will know he's lying. We'll just do a good job and the American people will reward us. Well, that was a really stupid strategy. When only one side is putting forth a message and the other side's political strategy is, hey, the American people will just ignore that message and they will see what's actually going on. No. That is assuming, and Biden himself said this many times, it is assuming that the American people are smart, they are well educated, and they are well informed, and they stay up to date on this stuff. They pay attention. Well, that is demonstrably not fucking true. The American people are not well informed, and they do not stay up on this stuff. We in this country, you and I, are living among ignoramuses everywhere we look. This is a profoundly stupid group of people here in the United States. Not everyone, obviously, but far too many people. Anyway, the point is, the status quo in 2024 was seen as not good. Specifically on the issue of costs, inflation. Now, inflation was coming down. You and I both know this, but it wasn't negative. It means prices weren't coming down. Prices were still going up, and prices were high. The rate of, increase in prices was slowing. Things were going in the right direction, but things were still very expensive. And so the American people, look, when people in this country perceive the economy as bad and their own personal finances as bad, that's all that matters to them. That is the most important issue. The economy is always the most important issue. The economy's stupid. What was that? Wasn't that James Carville's line during the Clinton administration? It's the economy stupid. It is. It almost always is. And Trump benefited from the perception that the economy was bad. And for a lot of people, the economy was. And prices were the most important issue to a lot of people. And so here Donald Trump, who, along with his propaganda machine, had for 4 years been lying about his time in office, had been lying about what was going on in the country during the Biden administration, every day saying that this is the worst economy ever, and that under Trump it was the best economy ever. And then given the fact that Trump hadn't been president for 4 years, and most people in this country have the attention span of a fucking fruit fly, 4 years ago, they can't remember what happened 4 years ago. Most people can't remember what they watched on TV last night. So they're not, so when all they're hearing is that the economy was great under Donald Trump and this is the worst economy ever, and they see the prices at the grocery store are high and getting higher, well, a lot of them just voted for Trump to bring the prices down. And that's basically what he ran on. I'm going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, and I'm going to bring the price of everything down starting on day one. So that's what they voted for, a lot of them. Certainly enough to make the difference in the election. Now, a lot of them voted for lots of other reasons. Many people voted because they're fucking bigots, sexists. They're just part of his cult and they were going to vote for him no matter what. There's all of that. But that's not that doesn't explain everything. And most people in this country are not part of his cult. His cult is maybe 25, 30%, which is friggin' insane. I mean, we have a personality cult in this country that's like 25 to 30% of the country. That's fucked up. Anyway, but most people don't pay attention to politics. They're just living their life. Yeah, they're not interested in politics. You and I are. If you're watching this video, you're a political junkie and you stay up on this stuff. But most people don't. They go to the grocery store, the price is high, they vote for the other guy. And that's why Trump is president. Okay, read a little more of this. Voters, particularly Democrats, are also fired up about the next election. Asked to rate their interest in the 2026 elections on a 10-point scale, 66% of voters responded 9 or 10. Higher interest 1 year out than voters registered in the weeks preceding 4 of the 5 recent midterm elections. So not only do Democrats have an 8-point advantage on the generic ballot a year out, which is enormous, they're also measuring higher than usual interest in the election a year out. These are not good signs for Trump and his cult. For Democrats, 74% rate their interest at 9 or 10, while 67% of Republicans and 50% of independents say the same. That is a 7-point enthusiasm edge in favor of Democrats. Not good for Trump. Altogether, it's clear Trump is shaping up to be a major factor in next year's midterm elections, with 70% saying they want their vote to send a message about support for or opposition to the president, the highest number in NBC News polling dating back nearly 30 years. And Donald Trump is the most unpopular president at this point in his presidency ever. As long as, at least so far as we have polling on this. So this is what Democrats need to run on. Trump. If you're a Democrat anywhere in this friggin' country, you make the election about Trump. Okay, let me see here. Do I have any more? I think I had just a little bit more. Okay. Speaking on NBC's news Meet the Press last December, before he took office, Trump distilled his 2024 victory down to 2 key factors. I won on the border and I won on groceries. Groceries, okay? It's a new word. I just made it up. Groceries. And you know, he's right about that. That's why he won. The price of groceries. It's not bullshit. That's why he's president. And what has he done to bring down the price of groceries? Abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Everything is getting worse. And of course, his tariffs, he owns this. He owns this. It's even, you know, the tariffs, the fact that Donald Trump implemented these massive tariffs and that it's destroying the economy, that information is even seeping down into the minds of the perpetually ignorant in this country. Even the average moron on the street who couldn't name for you the 3 branches of government, even some of them are starting to realize that Donald Trump is responsible for this. That Donald Trump's tariffs and whatever the hell else he's doing, because they don't follow it, but they know he's president, and their groceries aren't coming down. They voted for him because of the price of eggs and other things. That's why they voted for him, to bring their monthly bills down. And it ain't happening. They're going up. And Donald Trump can lie about it all he wants. And his mindless cult will repeat the lies even though they know they're lies. But the average person who's not part of his cult, they go to the grocery store and they know what things cost. And they know that they can't afford as much anymore because things are getting more expensive. And we need to hang that around the neck of Trump and his Republican cult. Okay, let me see here. On economic issues, sizable majorities of registered voters say Trump and his administration have fallen short of their expectations on the cost of living, 66%. And on the issue of looking out for the middle class, 65% think Trump and his party have let them down. And on the economy, 63% think they've done a horrible fucking job, which they have. Only 1/3 say that he has lived up to their expectations. That's the cult, all right? That's the cult and, you know, a few percentage points full of morons, okay? That's who those are. You're never gonna, you're really never gonna get much below 30%. disapproving of him, because the cult will never admit it. Okay, and then this article goes on to talk about other issues and how the public rates the two parties on other issues. They talk about immigration, constitutional rights and democracy, the other things. None of those things matter near as much as the economy. When the economy is bad, and this economy is, I know there are lots of indications that the economy is not doing that terrible, to the extent we even have numbers anymore. You know, we have the stock market doing better than you would expect. You have companies, major corporations posting major profits. But this economy, this entire country, is becoming more and more divided between the filthy fucking rich and everybody else. The very tippity top rich are making it, the oligarch class, the ones who bought this presidency for Donald Trump. They're doing great. They're getting every damn thing they want. But most people, the overwhelming majority of Americans, are not doing so well, right? They're getting screwed, and they feel it. And this is not good for the party in power, especially when they voted for these people, Trump and his cult, to address the fact that this economy wasn't working for them. And not only are they not making it any better, they are making it appreciably worse. And you don't have to be smart, thankfully, to realize that. You can be an average American voter who is, for the most part, a blithering idiot, and you can still figure out that Donald Trump is not making your life better. And that's not good for Trump. It's good for us, not good for Trump, and not good for his fascist cult. So the fact that things are not looking good right now for Trump and Republicans, and I believe that that trend is going to continue and accelerate as we get closer to the midterms. And if there's already an 8-point gap in favor of Democrats on the generic congressional ballot, what's it going to be like a year from now? Hopefully, a much wider gap. And if things keep going this way politically in this country, people keep turning against Trump and his cult, Donald Trump is going to become even more desperate to try to rig the midterm elections. He cannot allow Democrats to take back control of Congress, or even one house of Congress. Donald Trump is far and away the most corrupt criminal president in American history. No one's even close. You can't even say Nixon and Trump in the same breath. It's not apples and oranges. It's fucking apples and diapers. I mean, it's nothing close. And if Democrats take back even just the House and have the power to subpoena and investigate, Donald Trump's presidency is effectively over. Because all that Congress will be doing will be investigating. I hope so. They better damn well do this if they get back Congress or even just one house. They better be investigating all of this. They better be doing that on day fucking one. And if they have both houses of Congress, they better damn well be impeaching and removing this piece of shit. Anyway, the grifts, the bribery schemes, the crimes, and then fast forward to 2028. Even more important that he rigs that election, either to stay in office illegally himself, which I'm sure he's going to try to do, or at the bare minimum to rig it in favor of a Republican successor. Because Donald Trump in 2028 will be afraid of the same thing that Donald Trump in 2020 was afraid of: going to prison for his crimes. And yes, the friggin' Supreme Court gave him all expansive immunity for things that he does as president, but not complete immunity for everything that he does as president. Only official acts. And so many things that he has done cannot even arguably be said to be official acts. I mean, all these bribery schemes, bribery is specifically mentioned in the Constitution as a thing that can, bribery, treason, and other high crimes or misdemeanors. Those are things that would lead to the impeachment and removal of a president. So bribery certainly is not an official act of the president. And how many friggin' bribery schemes has this criminal piece of shit engaged in? I mean, I couldn't even name them all, and I'm sure there's a lot that we don't even know about. And he knows the bribery schemes he's committed and all kinds of other crimes that are not even arguably official acts. He knows he's done this. He knows he's a fucking criminal. He can't afford to have a Democrat be president starting in January of 2029. So he will do everything he can to rig that election or to never leave office. Because if he does and a Democrat becomes president in 2029, there is a good chance, if we friggin' elect somebody with balls who will go after this criminal, then Donald Trump may yet find himself inside a courtroom facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison, which of course is where he belongs. Anyway, I will link this article in the video description below. And as a reminder, I have 2 other channels. Those are also linked in the video description below. Please follow those if you don't do so already. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.